Hey guys, Kamina the Koach here. I have a sweater on and I'm absolutely dying, but it's a good color, so I figured it was a great time to make a video. So this isn't a feel-good, warm, fuzzy video. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about Saudi Arabia, working and living in Saudi Arabia, and I'm gonna talk about why I think that I will never be able to go back to Saudi Arabia. So not just talking about morally, but I feel like I've been blocked, which is better than being dead or in a prison. So anyway, so let's back up. I went to Saudi Arabia so I've been in Saudi Arabia, just so you know, on 4 different occasions. 2 of the contracts were at the same university, but different companies. So the first time I went to Saudi Arabia, I really enjoyed my stay in Saudi Arabia. And let me start off by saying, if you are Saudi, if I met you in Saudi, salam alaikum, and I love you. I do. And I hope you get that from this video. And it has nothing, video has nothing to do with Saudi people. This is 100% about the new leadership. I don't often get political, but this is a very good example of why you should know the politics surrounding where you are. Because Americans have this very inflated sense of importance in the world. And yeah, these aren't our countries. So I went to Saudi Arabia for the first time in 2013. I met some amazing women. I worked at an amazing all-women's university, biggest one in the world. It was amazing. So when I went to Saudi Arabia, the Mutawa, which are the religious police, were still there, and they still had quite a bit of power. They are the religious police. They had regular police and they had religious police. So the religious police are only policing things that they consider to be haram or forbidden. So unfortunately, this led to young ladies being targeted a lot for ridiculous stuff like lipstick, a slit in their abaya. It was ridiculous. People died from being chased by Matawa. Matawa was not supposed to chase anyone. I never had any problems with Matawa. But I say all that to say I got to Saudi Arabia for the first time at a time when they were still fairly conservative, and the prior king was still there. May God rest his soul. So my understanding from the diplomats that I was friends with was that this king was progressive, but he understood his people, and he also understood the clerics, the religious clerics. He wanted to do it bit by bit, to move Saudi Arabia forward, but slowly, bit by bit. And for all intents and purposes, while I saw the small progressions, right? So, I was in Saudi Arabia also during the time when women couldn't drive, and some of my students, even on the way to the university, the bus driver would pull over if they took off their niqab. They wouldn't drive if they didn't have their niqab on. So one of the things in a celebration that I was attending, they wanted the foreigners to write one thing that they loved most about Saudi Arabia. And I wrote family, and the girls kind of looked at me strangely because I didn't recognize that the families were controlling their lives so much, and even there were laws in place that controlled their lives. Not being able to go to the doctor without a man's permission, not being able to study without a man's permission. So all that aside, I believed, I might have been naive in this, I believed that this king's intentions were pure, that he wanted the best for his people, excuse me, and he thought that he was doing the best thing for his people Islamically. I believed that at the time. Right now, I have to say, I don't know. But at the time, the previous king, I believed that in his mind, at least, he felt like he was doing what was best for his people and what was best for Islam. With the death of that king came new leadership, very similar to so today is December 23rd, 2020. Very similar to the leadership that we have going out of the office here. I don't want to mention any names. I know that it throws up bells and whistles. And I'm going to get to why I'm going to be more careful about that from here on out. So the new leadership resembles the leadership that the United States is coming out of right now. I remember being in Mexico watching this leader who had made horrible comments about Muslims and Arab immigrants. And I watched the new leader of Saudi Arabia welcome this man, and they gave him a grandiose welcome. What is that even about? So I could kind of see it very early on. So I'm a diver, and I've been diving in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. There is an island there. I believe it's Ras Mohammed. Saudi Arabia didn't have a powerful enough army to protect it. So they had loaned it, I guess, to Egypt because they had a more powerful army. So now they're Saudi Arabia is taking this back, and they're taking it back for tourism. So now the new leadership has given women the right to vote, and their public gatherings, and blah, blah, blah. And he's been hailed across the globe for being this wonderful human rights person, blah, blah, blah. So let's go a little bit deeper than that. So what did he do that you didn't see unless you were living there? So I was living there right as women got their right to drive. And so what did I see happening? So what you see a lot as a foreigner in Saudi Arabia, even though Saudi Arabia was very restrictive for Saudis, it was quite free for Westerners inside of Western compounds. Well, this new leader shut all that down because he wants a cut of everything. Everybody knew that he imprisoned a lot of the royals, and he said that's good, and he's cracking down on corruption and blah, blah, blah. And he shut down all these hookah bars. He rounded up a bunch of drug dealers, all this stuff, but not to shut them down, to tax them, even the drug dealers. He wanted the drugs running through him. He wants a cut of it. A very ruthless young man. So if you don't know anything about the journalist who was tortured and dismembered in Turkey at the Saudi embassy, it was part of that setup was this new leader's intelligence, his digital intelligence. So I've watched a pretty amazing documentary. So all this stuff was always just suspicion for me. I watched a really amazing PBS, and I say PBS because they are much more neutral than other networks. I go with PBS, and I often go with Al Jazeera as well. I probably shouldn't have said that. But anyway, so PBS did a really amazing documentary on it and discussed the ways in which this new leader is tracking his people and the way he is cracking down on things. So, all right, so he does all these sweeps because he wants a cut of it. He wants the power. And as time went on, instead of getting more relaxed, he gets more anxious. So while I was there in Saudi Arabia this last time, my second term, so this last time I was there, I did 2 school years back to back. And when I came back that next school year, this leader had multiple people, civil rights activists arrested. Even an imam, for those of you who aren't Muslim, a prominent religious leader, and he is set to be put to death, and he is still in prison, by the way. Of these activists that he arrested, if I am correct, 6 of them were women. One of them was my colleague's mother. I have chills just discussing it. When it's close to home, it changes things. Even with the people outside of Saudi Arabia trying to discuss, oh, but what about the reporter and blah blah, and just so you know, the only thing this reporter did to upset leadership was say that maybe they needed to look someplace other than this new leader in the United States. That was all he said. Which blackballed him, and then he went to the United States and started writing other stuff, and that was what put the contract on his head. To my knowledge, anyways. All of this is just to my knowledge, but I did, so let's talk about what I experienced. So my colleague, and I say colleague because we weren't close enough to be friends, but we were close enough for her to feel comfortable enough to talk to me about it. And she was like, "You're American, Kamina." She was like, "Can you please say something?" And we sat down and talked about her mother was a retired PhD, college professor, big advocate for women's rights. Now that women can drive, okay, but they still don't own themselves. They can't travel without permission. They can't go to school without permission, can't go to the doctor without permission, can't marry without permission. So she was a big advocate for women's rights. She was waterboarded. She was electrocuted. And they brought a man in and stripped his clothes off and beat him in front of her and said if she didn't confess to treason, they were going to kill the man. I don't know what they did to the other women. I have heard that they were sexually assaulted, but I don't know. All I know is what I got from my colleague about her mother. And as a woman with no family and no real ties, the thought of doing something meaningful, dying doing something meaningful, dying doesn't appeal to me, but dying doing something that's bigger than me is. Right? Versus dying of cancer or in my sleep or whatever. I feel that dying for a cause is much more worthy. So I started posting links. I started speaking out in my groups. I think I might have even done a video about it. I had a couple of people, I didn't mention it to any of my Saudi friends because I didn't want to put them in any danger. But I had no idea to the extent that they were monitoring people, to the extent that China almost is monitoring people. Lots and lots of people have been put on their blacklist, their do not fly list, and their watch list. Lots and lots of people, because they have a huge young population, and there's so much access to the internet now. They're having a harder time keeping them contained. So they really, really, really are monitoring them hard. So now we come to why I feel like I'm probably not ever going to be able to get back in the country. If you have been following me at all, you know that about a year ago, I got stuck in Hong Kong. I was going to go to China again to teach, and I was going to cross the border at Hong Kong, and I got turned away at the Chinese border. So then I tried to get a position in Saudi Arabia, and it was no problem. I sent my passport and I was denied. And they said, "Oh, we think it's because you have the other visa, the open visa in your passport. You need to get a new passport." So it was a whole hubbub and blah, 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 blah. I had to fly back to the United States from Hong Kong just to get a passport. Got another passport, sent that off, and they sent this one to DC. and they denied me again. The first one was done in Houston. They sent another one to DC, and it was denied again. So I do know that a lot of people had been denied during that time, but it's not completely unlikely that I have been blacklisted from Saudi Arabia. That's why I'm doing this video, because I'm fairly certain that I will never, even if I got offered a position in Saudi Arabia, I would not feel safe enough at this point to go back to Saudi Arabia. So what is the point of making this video? I need for people, and especially teachers, doctors, nurses, diplomats, I suppose, are a little bit more protected than us average people. I need for you to know what you're stepping into. Like, oh, it's free now, so you get a tourist visa. Don't let the sweet taste fool you. This is not an Islamic leader. This is not a man who's overly concerned with Islam. This is a man solely concerned about his power and keeping his power and his money at all costs. At all costs. At any cost. So you should be very, very mindful of what you type, of what you say, any of that stuff in this country as a foreigner. Probably especially as an American. I suspect that they're probably watching you even more closely because they recognize that you could potentially be spreading ideas that are detrimental to his power, to his rule. I'll say that I'm a little disappointed because I have amazing sisters in Saudi Arabia. I made probably some of the best friends I've made ever. I made in Saudi Arabia back when I studied and embraced Islam. This is where I learned Islam. This is where I studied Islam. There is a very soft spot in my heart for what Saudi was before. And granted, it was very strict and very controlled, but it is now a police state. It's now deep state. Like, this is like complete control. And it's not control from Allah, from God. This is control from a man, from just a regular person. And for me, it's scary. That type of personality, you know, and he wanted Trump to come because he knows how to deal with people like Trump, because that's kind of how he was. God, I shouldn't have said that. Hopefully the black cars don't show up to get me, but I feel more comfortable speaking about this now that I'm in the United States. But yeah, I think that's probably it for me in Saudi Arabia. If you are looking at going there, I'm not telling you not to go. I'm just telling you that you need to be aware. The documentary was very eye-opening, but it didn't tell me anything new except for the minute details, because I already knew that and you could see it if you knew anything about Saudi Arabia. You can see that it went from very strict and now they're open, but don't be careful what you say, and don't criticize this leader at all, or you're just gonna turn up missing. So anyways, that's my 2 cents on that. I still have a soft spot for what Saudi was. I love all my girls that are still there. I love you if you're watching this. I love you. I miss you. Yeah, and this is not to rag on your country. It's not. It's just to caution people. And if you're watching this, maybe you shouldn't have watched it. If you're in Saudi Arabia, maybe you shouldn't have watched it. Anyways, if you are still watching in Saudi Arabia, all of my heart goes out to you. For everyone who's watching, wishing you love, light, peace, and joy. Until next time, this is Kamina the Koach. I'm out.